This past week, the Pope met with the U.S. delegation from the Catholic Church, led by Bishop Seitz, the chair of the Bishops' Committee on Migration. As the delegation shared stories of migrants, Bishop Seitz has said that the Pope's eyes watered. When Pope Leo celebrated a special Jubilee Mass this year, he called on people to welcome and care for migrants fleeing poverty, violence, and suffering. I quote, "They cannot and must not find the coldness of indifference or the stigma of discrimination. So tonight we pray with the words of Pope Leo in his message during the World Day of Migrants and Refugees. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In a world darkened by war and injustice, even when all seems lost, migrants and refugees stand as messengers of hope. Their courage and tenacity bear heroic testimony to a faith that sees beyond what our eyes can see and gives them the strength to defy death. Migrants and refugees remind the Church of her pilgrim dimension, perpetually journeying towards her final home, sustained by hope. At the same time, the communities that welcome them can also be a living witness to hope, one that is understood as the promise of a present and a future where the dignity of all, as children of God, is recognized. Loving God, migrant Jesus, be with us today, as each of us strive to accompany our sisters and brothers who are on the journey. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, and Kaylee will get us started. So Kaylee, you can take it from here.
Awesome. Let me know if the screen sharing works. Let me try this right now. Oh, Harrison, it says you disabled attendee screen sharing.
Uh-oh. Okay, how about
Oh,
now?
here we go. Okay, yeah, I think that'll work. Let me see. Share entire screen. All right, are we good?
You're good.
And then if I present here. All right, so hello everybody. Thank you so much, Harrison, for letting me be here tonight and talk a little bit about faith. My name is Kaylee Cruz. I serve as the communications manager for Faith. And I first got involved through the CCHD internship through the Office for Life, Peace, and Justice of the Diocese of San Diego. And Faith is a project by Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church, a parish run by Jesuits, the Roman Catholic Diocese of San Diego, and San Diego Organizing Project, which is an ecumenical organizing project in San Diego. So a little bit about us. Our mission statement is that we are an ecumenical ministry grounded in bearing witness, building trust, and providing pastoral care for individuals and families during their immigration court hearings and ICE check-ins. And so the two things that I would highlight here are first, creating a culture of encounter and offering the ministry of presence to all of our migrant brothers and sisters who are going through this difficult time. And then secondly, providing a united witness as people of faith, both to the government officials, the people in the courthouse, and just the general public to send the message that people of faith stand with immigrants today. And our acronym FAITH, it stands for Faithful Accompaniment in Trust and Hope. So I thought it would be helpful to first go over the difference between courtroom accompaniment and observation. And so observation can be defined as monitoring trends in government behavior and case outcomes by taking notes and collecting information. And then the side of accompaniment is more about bearing witness, being spiritually present and available, and offering comfort, prayer, and a peaceful presence. And so Faith is primarily a ministry of accompaniment. We do obviously try to monitor the trends kind of day to day, week to week at the courthouse in order to best serve in our accompaniment ministry and ask ourselves what things we can change to be able to better show up for people and accompany people given the current situation. We originally tried to encourage volunteers to take notes while they were at the courts, but we ended up finding out that this kind of distracted from the ministry of presence and just encountering people and being with the people. And so we think that accompaniment is kind of our primary area of focus at the moment. So we have our beginnings in the wonderful work of the Jesuits at Our Lady of Guadalupe, and they had run a migrant shelter for years, which I think really prepared the community to just kind of over the years realize that this is a priority in the church to accompany and to welcome migrants. And then what kind of kickstarted our processions and our court ministry was at the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe last year. We had invited parishioners to write on a piece of paper their hopes and their fears and to place them under the mantle of a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe at the parish. And what we found just in listening to the people was that the number one concern of the community was immigration. And people were wondering, when is the church going to step up publicly? And what can we do to support families and individuals in need? And so this led, as you can see in the picture here, to the first of many processions that we've done, both at a parochial and a diocesan level, and then eventually to court presence, thanks to one of our amazing SDOP reps who also works at Our Lady of Guadalupe. And so a little bit about how we kickstarted our public ministry. On the World Day of Refugees, Bishop Fahm was originally planning to gather clergy from around the diocese to accompany migrants to their asylum and removal hearings, but his letter ended up going completely viral on social media. And so we heard that a large crowd was actually planning to gather outside the courthouse for this event. And on the one hand, we were super encouraged that people were supportive of this, that people were excited about this. And on the other hand, we were a bit nervous that if the crowd got rowdy, it could jeopardize the clergy's chance of getting into the courthouse and being able to do the accompaniment. And so we ended up coming up with the idea that Bishop Fahm would preside at a mass in our downtown cathedral, which ended up filling up, being a really wonderful event. And then we sent a delegation of various ecumenical leaders to the courts. It was a handful of people. We had an Episcopal bishop, the Episcopal Bishop of San Diego. We had a rabbi, we had an imam, various Protestant leaders. And so this really kickstarted kind of the ecumenical mission or aspect of our ministry. And then one thing that I would note here, in case y'all are thinking of doing something similar, is that we handed out papers with QR codes to people so that they could send in their contact info if they wanted to be alerted of any opportunities moving forward where all of the public would be invited to support migrants and refugees. And so these were the first people that we invited to our orientation once it became a public ministry open to clergy and laity of all religious traditions. So a little bit about our volunteer orientations. We do require volunteers to attend an orientation before they can sign up for court shifts, mostly just so that they can get a sense of our mission and our ministry, kind of the ground rules that we have, and then a little bit about the day-to-day operations at the courts. And so we have a partner at the Immigration Justice Project who does a slideshow about the constitutional rights of the migrants, a little bit about the legal changes that we've seen under the current administration, which is super helpful for providing background, especially if that's not people's area of expertise. And then following that, we have a slideshow by some of our faith ministry leaders, again, just about our ministry in particular, kind of our spirituality, and then what to expect day to day at the courts. We try to spread the word through, we have an email list that's open to the general public. Our Lady of Guadalupe gets it out through their social media. And then another aspect that's cool is that we hold it at various ecumenical places of worship. We have one coming up this Friday at an Episcopal church, which is our first time doing that. Just trying to get kind of a wide range of people who might be interested. Another thing to point out, which we found to be very important, which we've messed up on before, is being very meticulous in recording who's signing in, who ends up staying the whole time, who'd add to our trained volunteer email list. So all the logistical stuff about that is very helpful and important. We usually find that they're about 2 hours with both slideshows. And then we try to allow time for questions, which can be really helpful, whether it's questions about what to do in certain situations, questions about the legal background, stuff like that. There we go. So a bit about the organizing side. I thought these 3 things would be helpful to go through. It has been amazing to have the Episcopal support of Bishop Fahm, our ordinary in the Diocese of San Diego, and our 2 auxiliary bishops. And I think in 2 main ways. One is promoting verbally in 3 statements, faith to clergy, and then also the laity of our diocese, because people feel like if they want to align themselves with his mission, with his vision for the church, and if they really want to hear what he's saying, that they also have to prioritize accompanying migrants during this time. And then also in setting an example. I mean, our bishops have been among the first, once we went public with our ministry, to sign up for regular court shifts and to provide that example, which we think has been a big help just in kickstarting everything. Secondly, ecumenism has been, I think, a really important part of just providing, especially to the public, kind of a visible witness that people of faith stand united in this mission to accompany and welcome migrants. San Diego Organizing Project has relationships with various congregations in San Diego because they are an ecumenical organizing project. And that's been super helpful. They've been absolutely amazing in the organizing side. Definitely have helped the diocese and Our Lady of Guadalupe with that side of things. And then the other thing that I would highlight here is just the importance of creating an atmosphere of inclusivity. We had heard from several of our Protestant brothers and sisters that seeing their leaders at the Mass in the cathedral with Bishop Flom in the sanctuary, that it meant a lot to them and that they felt that they were being welcomed by the Catholic Church in that way. And so that's also been a defining part of our ministry. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight kind of the two biggest things that we've heard from volunteers as we're kind of kickstarting things. And the first is a positive in that people are so grateful to have a tangible way to support their migrant brothers and sisters, especially people who've been really worried for a long time. And we're just looking for some sort of platform that would enable them and empower them to do this sort of thing. But then the flip side of that is just the difficulty in processing kind of the heaviness of events and the feeling of helplessness, which obviously I've experienced myself, when you're witnessing an arrest. You can try to offer kind words, but, there's just kind of a heaviness and helplessness and the processing that. And so two things that we've tried to implement based off of that we think could help our volunteers are trying to encourage them to stay 5 or 10 minutes at the end of shifts, just to kind of process their emotions, walk through what they experienced through the day together, to provide that sense of community for our volunteers themselves. And then secondly, we also started a weekly reflection program where volunteers can email reflections to a member of our core team, and then we'll send those reflections out once a week to all of the faith volunteers. And so they kind of get a sense that there's a community walking with them in this and that they're not alone in just struggling with the situation that we find ourselves in. I wanted to walk over our daily routine. I recognize that obviously this is going to be different depending on what courtroom location you're at in the US, but I think there are some things that could prove helpful. The first thing is gathering as a group in front of the federal building, and then checking in with the shift lead. So our core team identifies people, volunteers that we think demonstrate good leadership, and then also kind of have a really good idea of our mission, our ministry, and they can guide people throughout the shift, especially if it's people's first times. We have courtrooms on different floors. We have the DHS office for ICE check-ins on a different floor. And so having kind of a leader for each shift time has proven really helpful. We encourage them to start with a prayer, and then we do have to present a valid government ID at the security of the federal building. And then there are kind of two ways that it could go after our volunteers show up. First, we have an online intake form that's public where anyone can request accompaniment either for themselves or for a loved one or a friend. And so in this case, you might be paired up with someone ahead of time. And so you'll be given their name, the hour of their appointment. And so you can meet them outside the federal building and then try to accompany them from meeting them outside to hopefully getting them safe at the end. Or in my experience, there's a lot of just trying to encounter people either outside the building. We have, especially for the first shift, our first shift starts at 7:30 in the morning. 8 o'clock is the earliest appointment. Just trying to encounter people there, especially if they look distraught, just kind of chatting, offering to pray with them, offering accompaniment if that's something that they would want. Or there's a suite, at least in the San Diego courthouse, where everyone has to check in before going to their individual courtrooms. And so we usually station a handful of volunteers there just to try to encounter people there as well. And then again, we do accompany both for court hearings and ICE check-ins. This is somewhat a note for the clergy, but I think for laity as well. Just the importance of providing pastoral care, like I said, offering to pray with people, and just the spirituality of encountering Christ in the people, and then also offering the presence of Christ just in our own ministry and our own being willing to show up and to spend our time with the people so that they know that they're not alone. And then the last point that I'd offer here is just to be flexible. I've had so many random opportunities come up where I have to do this or that that I wasn't expecting. And so I think just it's important to let volunteers know that it's not always going to be an easy, showing up, sitting in the courthouse maybe for 2 hours during, a few hearings and then leaving. That there's going to be stuff that comes up, and just being flexible and open to whatever God might have for us in that moment. A piece on communication, which could be helpful, we choose to use Signal. It is encrypted, which we think is really nice for protecting our volunteers' information. And then also if we happen to be talking about any sort of cases or anything like that. And it also provides a way to communicate real time. And so we will break people out into their shift time groups, which is usually right now we have about 5 to 10 for each shift. Obviously, we're hoping that'll grow. But it allows us to communicate real time, especially if we see, we see a bunch of ICE officers coming down to this floor at this time. We can message the whole group and have volunteers kind of go to that area. And then also texting when we leave, just so we know that our volunteers are safe. We also have a core team member in every Signal chat, just so that we can go through and note any notable events that we should be aware of as we try to move forward accompanying the people. Lastly, a few tips about when ICE is present. Some of these things might be self-explanatory, but one thing that we found to be important is walking out of the courtroom with the respondents. We have unfortunately had a bunch of situations where you're in the courtroom and you hear the judge's decision is to continue the case, and you think that's great, they're safe, they'll make it out safely. And then we'll later learn that this person was detained by ICE in the hallway or when they're trying to leave the building. And so we try to drive home to volunteers that it's very important to walk with the people, at least until they get out of the building, maybe until they catch their Uber or however else they're planning to get home. When ICE is present, we'll usually encourage some volunteers to wait in the hallway instead of in the courtroom. I think the biggest reason behind this is just so that the first face people see as they exit, even if they are going to end up getting detained, is a face of compassion and of love and of welcome. Just to send the message again that they're not alone and that there are people who deeply value them as people and their presence in the country. And then lastly, might be self-explanatory, but try not to reveal the names of the respondents because ICE is always trying to identify people whom they might have a warrant to arrest. And so trying to keep any of that information private. A final word about logistics. I talked about Signal. For one-way communications like bulletins or announcements that we just want to send out to everyone, we use Flocknote, which is like an email database system, which we found really helpful. Besides our public website, we also have a private one where volunteers can view a calendar with the names of everyone who's at their shift time. And it also helps when they're signing up for their schedules to see, maybe the shift time doesn't have a lot of people, so it could be really helpful if I could be there at that time. And then this one is password protected, obviously, just for the safety of our volunteers because their names are on the calendar list. And then lastly, Google Forms is super easy. We just use that for all of our intake forms, both the one to request accompaniment and then to sign up for shifts, we have a different one. And then lastly, to RSVP for orientations. This, I think Harrison's going to share the slides with you. In case you're wondering how to locate immigration courts or ICE check-in locations, these are the government websites where you can easily search by your state or your city to find that. And then the last thing I would highlight, we put together a starter kit Google Drive that has a bunch more in-depth information in our planning kind of as we've gone along and what we've learned. So if you're interested in maybe starting something like this in your area, reach out to me or reach out to Harrison. We would be happy to give you access to that Google Drive and all the documents in there. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. That was wonderful. One quick question, since it's just a short logistical question. Someone asked if you
Yes.
could share volunteer orientation content. I don't, if that's possible, or maybe check
Yes.
with.
Yes,
Wonderful.
absolutely. We actually have both the Immigration Justice Project slideshow and our Faith Ministry slideshow that we share orientations in the Google Drive. So if anyone is interested, reach out to me and I can definitely get you access to the whole drive, or if you just want the slideshows, that would be no problem.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Kaylee. You're still sharing. My
Oh
job
dear.
was to remind you
I
to
knew, I knew
share.
this would happen. How do
That's
I
perfect.
stop
No, that's
it?
great.
We're good? Okay.
That's great.
Is it off?
Our No, yeah, you're perfect. You're perfect.
Okay, good, good,
We're
good.
good. We're good. All right. Okay, up next is Bill O'Brien. I am going to share my screen and Bill will share about Strangers No Longer.
Hmm. Thanks. And Kaylee, thanks a lot. Um, we're in Detroit. We're in Michigan. Actually, we started in Detroit, but now we're in some parts of the state. Enough parts of the state where we could say that we would like to uh, become a statewide organization. So, Strangers No Longer. Next slide. Um, so we're a network of Catholics. Now we decided to be Catholic. This was 8 years ago when Donald Trump came down the escalator. I'm sure if you're old enough, you remember Donald Trump coming down the escalator saying that all uh, Mexicans, I think, were rapists or something like that. Pope Francis was saying the opposite. So we decided to build circles of support. That's our name for in parishes and high schools to respond effectively to Pope Francis. And so our circles of support, I wish people would put the name of their parish or their university so that would have a sense on your name. Rename yourself Mitchell Wood from whatever parish or high school or university. Just partly because our circles of support, we started in parishes, but we've realized that there are plenty of people in universities and especially high schools that want to do something. So we tell them, create a circle of support to do education in your institution, to do accompaniment of families in crisis and advocacy for legal change, legislative change. Next slide. And we began July of 2017 with 16 people. Right, and what we had and what you had in your city too was massive deportations of immigrant breadwinners. The Muslim ban was hot. The local parish that had immigrant members was overwhelmed. And there was no archdiocesan engagement. I would say zero. Now, parishes were trying to do something, but at the diocesan level, there was zero. Next slide. So it just so happened, not to take credit for Jesuit stuff, but two Jesuit parishes, each were doing something, and they actually talked to each other, which is a good thing. And we decided that we were going to create circles of support. St. Mary's, actually, Amy Kettner's online, so I got to give her credit. St. Mary's Jesuit in Ann Arbor parish actually had a circle of support. So Jesu, we adopted uh, the same template, and then we decided to organize an immigration conference because to have two parishes to do something, that's fine, but how could we get more parishes involved? And this is what I'm going to encourage everybody to think about. Whatever you're doing at your university or at your parish, to create something where others are welcome and can actually then go back and work in their own institution. This was 2017. There was massive hunger, like there is now, to do something. People want to do something. And within 2 weeks, usually you say, well, we got to spend 3 months planning a conference. We took 2 weeks and and this is what we got. People from 20 parishes, nuns, lay people, 12 priests, actually 3 bishops came. Next slide. We decided, this was a major decision, is that we decided not to create our own little group of experts, but we were going to say parish based. If you want to belong to the inner group of our work, you've got to start something in your parish. that will educate in the parish, accompany families in crisis as we can figure that out, and then to do advocacy. So we were going to be parish-based. Next slide. This is what a parish-based circle of support looks like. They did fantastic work in a suburban parish. Next slide. And then then we got it. Immigrant women's circle of support. Most of these, I could go through. You might recognize the woman in the center, but most of these women are members of parishes, but they're like, they go to this. They don't have much voice in the parish. So we created immigrant women's circles of support, which connect to the local parish. Next slide. And then we realized, this was during COVID, that high school teachers and campus ministers were sort of at a loss to what do we do during COVID? Well, this is what they did. They created 12 high school circles. We now have 12 high school circles of support, all of them at Catholic schools. And it's not just a showpiece. They actually do stuff. So next slide. And so over the years now, this is 8 years of work. So you don't have to do this in 2 months, but we have these kinds of circles of support in different parts of the state. They're all different. They're not all the same. So you can see there's parishes, there's high schools, there's kind of regional secular organizations up in the north. There's immigrant women's circles of support. So next slide. Now, because and only because we have these kinds of small committees within a larger institution, we're able to do a number of different things. And Harrison and Clara asked us to talk about two things. One is a solemn procession, and then the other is a campaign to visit 100 police chiefs. So, by the way, that picture there, that second guy, the second guy in that picture is one of our auxiliary bishops. So our procession wasn't a group, it was really diverse, and we had hierarchical support. Next slide. Next slide. So this was on July 14th, we had a solemn procession, and it was pretty solemn. It started with actually, if you go on our website, strangersnolonger.org, on the homepage, you can see a 3-minute video, but this here is our solemn procession. We had about 600 people go to the ICE regional office. The guards shut the door on the pastors, on the nuns, on the archbishop, on all of us, like we were lepers. So that's what we were able to get 600 people on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock. By the way, you want to do an action, do it at Monday morning at 9 o'clock. The cameramen or women, the press, they got nothing else to do on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Just do it. Do something. And it was amazing, the press we got. There was too much press. Strangersnolonger.org, you can see the video. Next slide. But my point is that we were able to get 600 people because we have circle leaders in 20, 30 different parishes, high schools, and immigrant groups. So the second thing we are able now to do is to meet with police chiefs. So that picture there, we are asking police chiefs in our little cities, in our big cities, not to federalize your local police officers. It's called the DHS, Department of, no, DH, whatever, Department of Homeland Security is putting out requests with money attached now because of the big, beautiful bill, money attached, to get police chiefs to sign on to do a 287 agreement, which basically federalizes local police officers. Our churches, so we have parishes sending 5 people, 10 people to meet with the police chief to say, look, we don't think it's a good idea. What do you think? It's a relational meeting. It's not picketing. It's in the experience of the parish asking for just ask. Let's talk, Madam Police Chief or Mr. Police Chief. 287 agreements are bad for you. They're bad for us, and they're bad for humanity. So and for the democracy. So that's happening because we have circles of support in all these different institutions. Next paragraph or next whatever it is slide. And it was all because we started by saying, by inviting people to a conference. My my suggestion would be whether if you're a university, if you're a high school, if you are a lowly parishioner at a parish, to whatever event you have to invite people from other parishes because I just think people are hungry. They're more hungry now than they were in 2017, hungry to do something. And they may say, well, the pastor doesn't listen to me. Well, things are changing. But in any case, my suggestion would be to have whatever you do, invite people from parishes, high schools in the region. Thank you. Okay, Harrison, back to you.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Bill. Ted's up next. Thank you, Bill. That was wonderful. Really appreciated that. And just as a side note, talking about those 287G agreements, those are the agreements where the local police agree to work with ICE, work with federal immigration enforcement. I heard recently that last year there were about 80 something 287G agreements across the country, and now we're over 600. And so
Well,
we don't
that's because they got the money now. They're putting
exactly.
money, they're bribing is just yeah, they're bribing. So they're putting money out there. So
All right, Ted, I'm going to share your slides and
Thank
you
you,
can get
Harrison.
started.
Good evening, everyone. As Harrison noted in my introduction, I am a Nation Volunteer Corps Chicago member, and my current assignment, this is only my third year being an IVC member, but my assignment is with the Jesuit Refugee Service, and I have the privilege of working with Clara as well as her companion in El Paso, Texas, Giovanna. And I was sharing with Harrison earlier that I had the excitement of on Sunday, Chicago Sun-Times. It was a big photo of Father Dan Hartnett, a Jesuit who happens to also be the chaplain of IVC Chicago, who was trying to do communion to those who are detained in the major detention center here in Chicago and was turned down. He then offered communion to ICE agents who did not take up the offer, but then went ahead and did communion to the demonstrators who had all marched to the center. I'm looking forward to seeing Father Dan tomorrow at our monthly meeting. Next slide, Harrison. So I've been ending some of my reflections with this lyrics from this opening hymn. My wife doesn't let me sing in public, and I think we have enough people on this Zoom that would qualify as public. So I will not be singing this hymn, but I refer it to you when you get the recording. It is a lovely hymn. Our music director at Old St. Patrick's set it to a nice Irish tune. But I think diverse in culture, nation, race is what we're all about on this call. And I've been starting to use the last line as a close off on some key emails to let our resolve like steel be strong to stand with those who suffer wrong. And so I leave that as sort of something for you all to reflect on. Next slide. I want to give a shout out to Jesuit Refugee Services, and they will be planning another National Advocacy Day sometime this spring of 2026. And this was a real kickoff for being able to get people involved. And we worked with the provincial office here for the Midwest in Chicago. We were able to get appointments, Zoom appointments. Some JRS members went to DC and were there in person, but here in Chicago, we were able to set up these appointments and getting a taste of interacting with congressional offices, even if they're state offices, I mean, staff from these offices is a key thing. And it really got a lot of turn around on Old St. Pat's of starting to talk about what else can we be doing about advocacy. Next slide. And so one of the things we did, we started following up with both Senator Duckworth and had a really productive meeting with her Chicago staff. We actually had a meeting with Congresswoman Schakowsky with two other parishes that were in her district. And Senator Durbin is actually a parishioner at Old St. Pat's, and he met with probably about 30 of our ministry after our Sunday Mass. And we now have planning what our priority appointments are to work with other parishes. Old St. Patrick's is a bit of a destination parish, if you would, just west of the Loop. And so we have parishioners throughout the metropolitan area. And so now I think with point Bill was making, we are reaching out to other parishes. Next slide. So we've been convening other parishes. Our next Zoom is next week. We're putting together a advocacy committee meeting to plan the agenda for that. And the key thing too is that's leading to other contacts. So not only do we have a total of 12 parishes right now, but we're asking parishes to tell us about other parishes that they know. But that has also led to key contacts at Catholic Charities and to a very vibrant, robust coalition for spiritual and public leadership that's been doing a lot of protest out at the detention center. Another key point I think that Bill was getting at was informing your own parish and then using this as a model for other parishes. We did what we called a circle of inclusion, and we did it on the 111th World Day of Migrants and Refugees, and we did it between the 9 o'clock Mass and the 11 o'clock Mass so that members of the congregation who were coming to either one of those masses could participate in a half-hour service. And we decided early on not to ask any of our migrant families that Old St. Pat is working with. We didn't want to run the risk that ICE would show up to church at Old St. Pat's on September 28th. Ironically, they showed up last Sunday at a church in Chicago's Roger Park neighborhood that was doing a Spanish Mass, and the priest had to warn all of the parishioners and to basically set up sort of a gauntlet of other parishioners to help them basically leave the church and not be bothered by ICE. But it also provided an opportunity to share the stories. And so we had a couple of our family liaisons share the successes and challenges that migrant families are meeting. Next slide, Harrison. So here are some key lessons from our work so far in Chicago. We're finding it more and more critical to know the legal status of accompanied migrant families to be able to identify knowledgeable and affordable immigration attorneys. We now have probably bordering on half of the dozen families we're working with who are somewhere moving through the legal asylum process. And we've gotten, a friend of a friend who's doing a very affordable, offer of doing legal counsel. Others that were charging outrageous. Somebody was saying, "Oh, you should contact this attorney in Florida." It turns out he's not even an immigration attorney. So there's a lot of things to be working with, and it is important to know that. And so we're kind of trying to track that. And we're really obviously, and I'm sure this is true in some other cities, fear has set in here in Chicago with the ICE invasion. People are afraid if they have a job, they're afraid about going to work, they're afraid about taking their children to school, they're afraid about going to the grocery store. That fear is really setting in. And so it's important, I think, to also educate parishioners about being supportive with circles of inclusion and vigils to be planned so that they start volunteering as well to potentially be family liaisons at our parish or in other parishes. And that's why it's key to be outreaching to other parishes because we can certainly learn from each other. I mean, I think some of the things that Kaylee and Bill shared tonight are lessons I hope to take back. And I do see among the participants a couple of our Old St. Pat's parishioners that basically sharing resources. One of the first places I visited was a church in Oak Park. Two churches had merged, and in the merger, the school at one of the churches was closed, and they had opened up an incredible resource center for migrants everything for one classroom was kids' shoes, another classroom was clothing, another classroom was this. So there's ways of sharing these resources, and those resources were available, and they were really close to a public transit line for other migrants in the city to get to them. And then the other thing we're finding from our advocacy outreach is informing elected officials of migrant and refugees challenges. Now, to some degree, I will admit, here in Chicago, with our blue state and blue city, we're somewhat preaching to the choir, but that's very important to get that kind of strategic input as well, and to be identifying where there might be in the future an opportunity of some bipartisan reforms that would improve our lives of our refugees. Next slide. I want to give a shout out again to Jesuit Refugee Services. This is a national program that we are promoting here in Chicago, as well as reaching out in the Midwest, of being able to recruit, just as Kaylee was describing in San Diego, of people to be going to court. And we're starting off modestly with court observation, and to be able to be in a position of ramping up with volunteers who have learned things that could then accompany. And this free short online training that JRS has done in partnership with the American Bar Association, no legal experience is required. It's free, and then it enables you to be part of the network. And I believe tomorrow is one of the first webinars JRS is doing for folks who have completed the training. I think Clara has put in the chat box a link. You don't have to already have taken the training if you want to hear and sit in on what people are sharing about, because that's another key aspect of this, is sharing with each other what's there to learn, and to be available to have the folks who have been trained, who are able to accompany migrants to ICE check-ins or observe court hearings. And sort of, we're already learning which judges are the more favorable judges to hope for when your family is getting their court date, who might be more open to the case that's being presented. And Harrison, I'm ready for I believe, our final slide, which is my contact information. I am the Chicago and Midwest Regional Coordinator, and I think I saw earlier our new East Coordinator, who's based in New York City, is on this call, and I hope to find out soon from Clara, where are we in recruiting our South and West regional coordinators, so that those positions may still be open. But I look forward to all of your feedback and questions, and I think I am complete, Harrison.
All right. Thank you very much, Ted. That was wonderful. Clara is going to make a couple of announcements before we get to questions and answers. But feel free to have your questions ready, and we'll have about 5 to 8 minutes for those.
Yeah.
All right, Clara.
I'm gonna share my screen super quick. So as we come to the end of this powerful gathering, I want to thank each of you for being here, for listening, for opening your hearts, and for your willingness to be part of a movement that we feel that is rooted in faith and justice. Tonight we have heard testimonies of courage, but these are not just examples. So please take them as invitations. They show us what's possible when we act together, grounded in our faith and in solidarity with our migrant brothers and sisters. So I initially wanted to invite you into a moment of reflection, but I prefer to take that time and use it for Q&A. So please take a screenshot and save these questions for tonight as you take time to review your day and maybe do the ignition examen and review where is the Spirit already at work in your community and what is God inviting you to do. I don't know what like God's invitation to you and your community now, but I do know what I want to invite you to. And it's to join JRS and other Catholic institutions on the One Family, One Church initiative. It's a national call to action for Catholics to stand publicly with immigrants on October 22nd and November 13, the feast of San Francis Cabrini, the patron saint of migrants. There are many ways to participate, and the website offers practical guidance. You can take a look, download the different resources, and register your event. And please reach out if you have questions or want further guidance. Each of these actions, for small it is a way to say to our migrant siblings, you're not alone, you're loved. Let us remember the words of Dilexite, the New Apostolic Exhortation. Through your work, your efforts to change unjust social structures, or your simple, heartfelt gesture of closeness and support, the poor will come to realize that Jesus' words are addressed personally to each of them. I have loved you. So this is our mission. This is our moment. Let's go forth, grounded in prayer, united in action, and committed to love. Thank you for being part of this journey. We are one church. We are one family.
Thank you, Clara. All right, we've got some time for question and answers. Feel free to put them in the chat, or if you see the react button down there, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you as we have time. We've got a few questions already. Kaylee, one question for you. Can you share, when y'all get to the courtroom, how do you identify yourself as a faith representative? How do people recognize you as someone willing to accompany?
Yes, absolutely. I saw that question in the chat and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. You may have seen on the slideshow our logo. It's a little circle with the praying hands and it says faith on it. And we have buttons that we hand out to all of our volunteers that are maybe like a little smaller than the palm of your hand. And so we wear those on our shirts and so people can recognize our group.
What has been people's reaction when y'all are in the courtroom or when y'all are in the hallways?
Yes, definitely mixed. We've gotten both various government employees from different offices that are around the federal building saying, thank you for being here. We appreciate your presence. You know, we really believe that you are making a difference. Obviously, a bunch of the respondents are super grateful. ICE is not so cordial with us. I mean, depending on the person, obviously, we get all sorts of things. We've been kicked out of courtrooms before. We've been kicked out of the JHS office before. I would argue unjustly because we weren't doing anything. So it's mixed, but I would say besides ICE itself and DHS itself, people generally are very welcoming and grateful for our presence.
How have things changed? I just had this one question, Kaylee, that I was interested in. How have things changed from when y'all started, a couple months ago to where things are at now with different court rulings and just the reality of how ICE is functioning in the courtrooms?
I think it's been a lot of discussions with our core team of just like the week-to-week updates. I mean, the latest thing, and I don't know if this is nationwide or just in San Diego, is that just last week, ICE, apparently, at least in San Diego, received a directive to arrest almost everyone who's coming in for an ICE check-in. And so we just had to send in an announcement to all of our volunteers saying, as much as courtroom accompaniment was and continues to be one of our focuses, we'd like you to focus on the ICE check-ins being in the second floor where the DHS office is, or even just staying outside the federal building and letting people know if you're here for an ICE check-in, here's what to expect. And then ICE will change its tactics. One of the things that we heard kind of through the grapevine is that one of the reasons that they're doing more arrests on the DHS office floor is because they don't like dealing with faith volunteers observing those arrests outside the courtrooms. And so, yeah, we're always trying to kind of catch up to whatever their tactics are. How do we respond? How do we continue to be present with the people?
Thank you, Kaylee.
Mm-hmm.
One question I had for you, Bill, how have these conversations gone with police chiefs or police departments that y'all have had about the 287G agreements? Have they been receptive to the conversation, or how have those gone? You're muted, Bill.
I would say the majority of the police chiefs. So we did, as of like 2 weeks ago, I don't know where we are now, but we had 33 of them. Now, these were all done by local parishes. So a parish went to see, 5 people from a parish or 2 parishes. And most of the police chiefs were like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. And thank you for coming. I mean, you may think that everybody goes to see the police chief, but in fact, generally the chiefs were happy to, were grateful. There's one of our leaders from St. Michael's in Sterling Heights, just over the years that says, I'll do I'll do education. We'll have a speaker in. I'll help some families, but I'm not doing advocacy. Well, after she actually went along with the group to see the police chief in Sterling Heights, and she says he was so grateful and he wanted to know more, and I became a teacher. That's what she does. She says, "So, hey, Bill, I'm now I'm going to do advocacy." So
That's powerful.
I would say it's very comfortable, more comfortable than people think. But the other thing
Here's
they get to do is they get to actually identify from their parish. So it actually probably in some cases re-begins the relationship between the parish and elected authority.
Yeah, and Amy put a really good point in there that county sheriffs have a lot in this to play too,
Thank you.
have a
Thank
big
you very much.
role. And so I think sometimes we tend to think that um, federal policy controls immigration, and while that is true, a lot is down at the local level, especially in our current reality. So these sorts of like small conversations that maybe you think might not be as powerful, actually for the immigrants in your community, they could be extremely powerful.
Well,
Um,
putting out a call to your contacts to say we need to go visit police chiefs because what I mean, if a police chief signs the 287, his or her local officers become in effect ICE agents. So it's like say whatever however bad ICE is, this is like multiplying it massively. So uh, that's why we're doing it.
Question from Audrey in the chat. I think this is for you, Kaylee. Bill or Ted may have thoughts as well, but one of the question from Audrey was, are y'all doing any accompaniment to ISAP appointments, which is
Mm,
the monitoring agency? Maybe if you
yes.
could explain what that is and if y'all do that, or any other things as well, grocery visits, medical appointments, things like that.
Yes. Um, I am not as familiar with exactly how ISAP works. However, one thing that we did realize was, and I'm not even entirely clear on some of these policies, but some of the people who are showing up for ICE check-ins at the San Diego courts will be sent to ISAP, which for us is across the street in a different building. And so we have been encouraging our volunteers, like if the person you're accompanying is sent to ISAP, like don't leave them, go with them, stay with them, especially because we found that at least for us, that process can take several hours. And then, yeah, they're given either the sort of wrist monitor or some sort of ankle monitor. And so that is very much a part of our ministry. We haven't done so much like going to grocery stores or other public places. I think that's a wonderful idea. So I don't know if eventually we'll expand to do that as well. But ISAP has been something that just came up for us.
Thank you, Kaylee. And Amy put in the chat that you can share your 287G training materials. That'd be wonderful. I would love to share those out with the broader network. That'd be super helpful. Okay, well, we are about out of time.
I just was going to respond to this question that
Great.
the family liaisons at Old St. Pat's actually, depending upon what the family needs, they will be, in addition to providing financial rent assistance, they will also be dealing with food. They identified the families that had a lot of children and did a whole thing with school backpacks and getting ready for school. So there's those kinds of things that are tailored to what the family might appreciate and benefit from and wouldn't be providing on their own as part of the accompaniment that those liaisons are doing.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Well, Kaylee, Bill, Ted, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, for sharing your expertise. This was immensely valuable. And thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. We hope this presentation was helpful for you in your own organizing efforts and in your own communities. Together, we'll continue to work to build the beloved community that God had in mind when He created us. A community where we're all recognized, valued, and uplifted because of the image of God in each of us. This work isn't always easy, but it's sacred, and it's possible because we do it together. Thank you for being with us tonight. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.